All right. Good morning, CC Pro members. Um, this is Cole, and I'm going to actually. I took yesterday. I asked you all for, or I put a post up and asked for if anyone wanted my help, or anyone wanted to see how I'd edit your photos. And a handful of you, actually about 12 of you, I think, gave me some options here. I actually grabbed all of them because I didn't want anyone to be left out here. So I'm gonna do my best to edit all of them. What is going to be really fun for you, I think, is you're going to be able to see a little bit of my thought process with how I edit photos. And then, of course, some of these photos, I'm also going to give you some critiques if there's something that's not editing specific, I would have done differently. I was going to just load these right into Lightroom, but then I realized some of you might be brand new to Lightroom and might even need help actually importing them in the first place. So I haven't imported them yet. So the first step is you have to make sure that the photos are somewhere on your computer, okay? I mean, technically, if these already were saved to my computer, but if I was coming in right off of my memory card, then that's fine too. So on the left hand side, you basically always like to work left to right, so in the import window. So here's where I was, right? And then so let's say I have some new pictures I want to import. Just come here and click the import button in the library module, and then you have to work left to right. So on the left, pick the source. So where are these photos? If I had my memory card, if these were all on my memory card, then I can easily pick that and then they're all going to come in. But I already saved these to a folder, so I have to go find the folder, and you can see Cole's Click, and then right here, member photo editing video. So here they are. So then I can just simply say add. I don't want to do I don't want to copy them in or anything to the computer because they're already on the computer. Okay, so this is all I really have to do. Literally at this point, I could just hit import and I'd be done. If I wanted to do one by one, okay, build previews, that'll help. Sometimes when you're like scrolling through in Lightroom and it takes a while for the photo to come in, that's because it's rendering the actual full size, or it's rendering a like high res JPEG preview. So if you go ahead and if you do one to one, that will actually speed up that process. However, it'll really slow down the import process. So we're going to keep it at minimal because these are small, these aren't raw files, these are JPEGs anyway, so we should be fine. I'm also not going to apply any preset at import so that we can do this from scratch. So here we go. Let's hit import. And I apologize if some of your names are spelled wrong. I was doing it by memory right now, first and last name. So anyways, this first one we're going to look at. So we're in the library module now. To actually edit, we want to go to develop. Okay. And by the way, my Lightroom's been really slow lately. I don't know if I need more RAM on my computer, but bear with me here. Okay, so this is a photo that Courtney submitted, and it's a super cool photo. Very I like it. I mean, it's really nicely done. I know I can't like get super crazy on the zooming in and that kind of stuff because these aren't like super high res. But let's go and see what we can do here. And I'm actually going to probably utilize. I'm going to edit from scratch, and then I'm also going to sort of show you some examples with like some of my my presets, because honestly, I use presets. You can see this golden hue one instantly looks great on this setting here. These are in my light and airy presets. So let's go and reset this and just edit this one from scratch. The first thing I like to tell everyone is edit top to bottom. Okay, on the right hand side here, I like to work top to bottom. So I know this isn't a raw photo. If it was, it'd be a little easier to sort of work with white balance. But still, we can warm it up a little bit because it's definitely on the cooler side. So let's go and just start there. Maybe add a little magenta to it. We'll see how this looks. I don't think we need to add too much brightness because that looks pretty good. But sometimes I like to add just a little bit of a pop. So then when I add contrast, I'm going to drop the highlights a bit to take away some of that harshness of that. I'm going to drop the shadows. The whites are fine. And then let's play with the black point here a little bit. Clarity. I'm going to add just a little. I personally don't want to add any more vibrance to that. Sometimes you can get fancy and sort of add vibrance, but then maybe take away a little contrast. Let's see how that looks. Sometimes that's sort of or opposite. Add some contrast, but then take away a little bit of just knock the vibrance down just a smidge maybe. And I work my way down. I'm not going to mess with any of the stuff in the middle. I usually don't. Add a little bit of sharpening. Obviously it looks a little extra sharp just because this is the JPEG. And I don't know what ISO you shot this at, but sometimes even just adding a little noise reduction will give it a little bit of a smooth out some skin tones and stuff. So that's literally what I would do right there. I think, I mean, if you want, you can add a little, let's see here. You know, sometimes you can add a little vignetting, but I don't like adding a lot. And sort of as our style went on, we actually added less and less and less. Okay, so that's what I would sort of do there to that one. Here's the before and after. So basically we warmed it up. We added some contrast in, but we were able to do it without screwing up any skin tones. And sort of the way we did that was we didn't go crazy here on the contrast slider, right? Because I mean, if we go then it just becomes radioactive. However, it did, since it was that flare, you did lose some contrast, so that's why we added that in. Okay, so now if we wanted to see that with a preset, let's see here. I would do probably, let's try this golden hue. So this is step 1. Step 2 is our exposure adjustment, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to add some contrast, maybe this one. And in this case, I think the biggest thing, I mean, that preset would get us that initial tone, but then we'd still want to come in here and mess with drop our highlights and that kind of thing. I threw a little matte on it, a little matte, just to see how that looks. And you can see that gives us a good result too. Okay, so let's go here. So this one is from Mindy. It's very well done in camera, exposure-wise. So literally, let's go and start with a preset on this one, and then we'll do one from scratch. Let's do light and airy. Let's take a look. Or sometimes this rosy cheeks looks really nice too. Adds a little bit of magenta, which I think will go good here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and maybe bump up. Let's just see if we brighten it up just a little bit. And then let's go ahead and, I mean, let's just see how it looks with a little bit of a matte effect. Here's more of a hardcore matte effect. I like this. I honestly like this little slight bit of matte. Sometimes I like playing around. Oh, that's because we're on a JPEG image. Yeah, that's why the grain isn't working good on there. And honestly, everything's sort of fine here. I mean, let's see about recovering some highlights, but there's not much to recover. I mean, you did a great job in camera, to be honest. Sharpening. I mean, if we want to put a little vignette, and then boom, we're done. So, I mean, that's what I would do on that one. If I wanted to do that from scratch, at full speed here, let's take a look. I mean, a lot of times you just want to add a little bit of warmth to skin tones. Here's that magenta, add a little brightness, a little contrast, drop some highlights, drop some shadows, just a little, maybe a little more whites, drop the blacks. I would actually go a little bit less on the clarity here because it'll sort of open up their faces a bit. Watch what happens to their faces. All right, and then this one's pretty much done. This is yeah. So we're good on that one. Great job, Mindy. All right, so this one's from Jeanette. I know this was a travel photo, and here it looks like some of these aren't really very sharp on them. What I would do differently on this for more of a compositional thing is I definitely wouldn't have the one person up here, one person down here. It just sort of looks funny. I would put both people sort of in front of the tree. Obviously, I think this is meant to sort of show like this big tree type thing. Obviously, as a portrait, the tree is sort of a little bit of a distraction here. In terms of the editing, I mean, in camera, it did a pretty good, I mean, let's go to the crisp and clean presets here. In camera, we did pretty good already. I mean, if you wanted to put a little bit of some tone on it, that Coachella is always a nice one. Bright Eyes is always a good one. This is in the Miracle preset. I wouldn't do Miracle here. Wild Card's a good one. So yeah, I would honestly just throw like a Bright Eyes preset on it like that, or even classic crisp and clean, and call this one a day. I think the editing, there's not as much that we can or want to do here. It's just more of a compositional thing that I would keep in mind for next time. Okay, thank you for your submission, by the way. So here's a photo from Debbie. The The first thing I notice is the white balance is a little bit too warm. We can try the eyedropper, although this works best. I don't know why is this not giving me a preview? Let's try this again. There we go. Sometimes my Lightroom likes to mess with me. Okay, so this works best when you're shooting in RAW, but we should probably get a good result here too. So in the white balance, I took the eyedropper. You can use this white balance selector tool on the W key, and then come over and then hover over your image, and then look at the upper left here. And then basically we're just going to want to find where we get that really nice balance. And you can see hovering over this, sort of any sort of grays, even browns do okay, but really like grays do really good. So I'm going to click right here and then look at what it did instantly. So instantly now we know white balance is good. So remember, top to bottom editing. And I mean, we could do a preset, but we'll just do it from scratch. I'm going to brighten it a little bit. I'm going to lower contrast here a little bit, because look what happens on her face. Look at how the tones sort of smooth out when you drop the contrast. That's going to keep the highlights there. Even add some shadows, add some whites. We're going to brighten this up, then we're going to drop the blacks. That's going to really help it pop without messing up skin tones. Same with clarity. I don't want to get crazy like that, but I just think it looks a little bit more flattering when we drop the clarity a little bit. I'm going to not touch any of that. I'm going to add a little sharpness, and you're done. So there's your photo. I think that looks way better. It's mostly a white balance thing there. Okay, so Pam wanted to know what to do about the glasses, and at first I wasn't sure what she meant, and then I now see it. There's basically a weird like refraction thing here. And I gotta tell you, to be honest, I'm not the best when it comes to Photoshop fancy stuff, or really photoshopping stuff like that. That's really, I think, the only way you're gonna be able to solve that one. And we do have a handful of Photoshop pros in the group that can give us some guidance, or give you some guidance if that is something that they can even fix in Photoshop. I do also know that there's a tool called, I think it's called retouchup.com, that if this was a picture for your client, you can send to them and they'll do it for like $5. And that's well worth your time. But I still didn't want to leave you out, so I wanted to go ahead and just play around and see what we can do on this image editing wise, not counting the glasses. I mean, obviously the colors look great here. That Bright Eyes preset instantly, oops, let's go back to fit. You can see Bright Eyes just gives it a little bit of a boost. The color tones stay good, the skin tone stays good, but it really brightens it up, and you're going to want to brighten this up before anything got printed. So Bright Eyes preset is a great one inside the Crisp and Clean presets. Classic Crisp and Clean is good too, although that doesn't really brighten it much. If you wanted to do a little bit more of a vintagey edit, Coachella is a really good one. And then of course we can just simply apply the preset, whoops, wrong slider, and then brighten it up a little bit to taste too. So I'm sorry I can't help you with the glasses, I'm just being honest. But yeah, I think just brightening it up would do wonders. And then if you wanted to add some warmth, you know, you can play with these sliders up here, or of course if you have my presets, something like the Coachella or the new fall presets would look great with this, with some of the orange sort of tones here. Okay, thank you for that submission. Here's Amber's photo. This photo looks good. I mean, this could be a really good black and white candidate, just because there's sort of a lot going on, especially with the green in the back. But here's another one for Bright Eyes. So a lot of these images, they just need to be brightened up, especially if you go to print them. So here's one click with Bright Eyes preset, and then, I mean, you could see the settings here. Basically drops the clarity, drops the blacks, drops the highlights, boosts the whites and shadows. That's essentially what we got going on here. And in one click, there we go. So that's what I would do on that one, Amber. All right, so here's another one. This one's from Bree. Great work in terms of nailing it, the exposure and camera. Really good job. It looks plenty sharp. I mean, clearly this would be a great in black and white. I think that's just a really nice portrait. Let's go ahead and see some other looks here though too. So remember, Coachella will give a little bit more of a warm vintage tone. That's in the mirror. That's in the Crisp and Clean. Winter Wonderland will sort of give some cooler tones. Peachy Keen is always nice and subtle. It'll add a little bit of a peach tones. I'm just curious what'll happen on the Light and Airy presets here. Yeah, Dapper Dan, Enchanted Forest, that's a good one here. Golden Hue. That one's too cold for this image. Rosy Cheeks will look really good here. As will, yeah, Sunflower. Let's try Rosy Cheeks. All right, so then we're just going to basically want to add maybe a little exposure just to really get it to help pop. Let's add some contrast in. Let's go ahead and I'm just curious what that looks like. There's a matte, little matte look to that. Let's recover some highlights. There we go, bring a little bit of this clouds back. A little bit of a vignette. And there's the difference. If you think that's a little too bright for your taste, you can drop that exposure back down, and there it is. I think that's a great option. I think that fits that image really good. All right, so moving on, we have, looks like Cindy's image here. I know she expressed some concern about warming up the face without the entire image, so there's a couple things we could probably do with this. Let's go ahead and first look at one of the more warm, I mean, this Coachella is a really good one that'll help warm it up. And honestly, I mean, let's see. Let's play with this one a bit. So here, I mean, you can see her face exposure is so much hotter than the rest, and by hot I mean like overexposed. So dropping the highlights is going to sort of neutralize out and sort of help balance this, and even though these two. So this one, we're really going to want to, and watch this histogram, right? Because look at where we started. Where we started is a lot more is revved up here on the right hand side, and we want to bring that sort of back down. So let's just drop the whole exposure first. Let's warm up the image. Let's add some magenta because her skin is a little too green and pale for me. It's hard. I'm like turning my head looking at drop the highlights, drop some whites. And we really want, this is sort of a tricky image because, you know, we want to put the viewer right at our subject's face. So by doing so, I really think we sort of want to like reduce some of the exposure around here, I think. I wouldn't really be as worried about the warmth, and I'd be more worried about like how do we draw the attention right here. So we can do a couple things. Let's try this radial filter. This is a really neat tool. And let's just, you know, so basically right now we're adjusting everything that's not in this filter. So I mean, so you can play around with this a little bit and get, so this isn't touching anything inside. Or if I invert it, then it's the opposite. Then it's doing everything inside. So let's open this up a bit. There we go, to cover more of her face. So I mean, if I was you and if I were to edit this, I think something like this is at least getting us on the right track. Because look at where we're at. We went from sort of this, like, there's grass, there's stuff, there's colors, there's a super, super bright face, to now something that we're attracting, we're sort of helping navigate where we want our viewer's eye to go. So that's one thing that I would do. Now, to answer your initial question, if you wanted to just sort of add tone, you can do a couple things, but you can definitely use this adjustment brush. Let's see, I do brush warmer skin right here, and we can add in some warmth. And this is supposed to be subtle, but that's how you would want to do that. So, you know, and you can adjust this right here, by the way. I mean, you can see me adjusting on her face. Let's just sort of keep that contrast down to sort of counterbalance it. If you hit the O key, you can see where you've gone. You know, if I was concerned with her lips having some of that adjustment, or even her eyes, we can now come here to the erase tool. It's the same brush, but we can erase that effect off. All right, right, so now if I hit O again, then that shows me what I'm working with. And I don't know if you already have these brushes, but these are really, really handy. These are in the polished collection. Her eyes look beautiful. I do have an iris enhancer little brush that we can sort of even brighten more. There's a lot of stuff we could do. Wide eyes. So this is a lot of stuff that some people do in Photoshop, but inside, and that looks funny because it's so close up, but when we zoom out, it looks beautiful. So, if you wanted to go for the warmer skin, that's what I would do. Keep in mind we darken the edges. Another thing that you can always do to darken edges is the graduated filter. Depending on how I don't want to say how aggressive, but yeah, depending on how aggressive you want to sort of do that, like that's another way to have sort of an extreme vignette, which honestly in this photo I think looks great because it just really draws your attention there. Now, I can't help but say I think this photo would be really, really cool in a black and white too. And then then we might have to be careful and back off the graduated filters. Let's go and reset those. Whoops. Well, it looks like we're starting from scratch. That's okay. Let's go right to black and white. Let's use the, I love this Pure Class in the Crisp and Clean collection. Let's go in and, I want to keep the face pretty bright, but we do need to work, we're going to drop that, so let's go ahead and go back to, well no, let's do the radial filter. There we go. So, I gotta go and change the brush on the radial filter to darken. And then invert. There we go. So now, I think that looks pretty, excuse my French, but pretty badass. So I think that you could have definitely added a good color, but I think it looks better in black and white, to be honest. Thank you for that submission. All right, Jennifer, man, this photo, I saw Lauren's comment was like zombie, baby, and I agree. It is, and I think so. This is something that I don't think we have something on editing we want to look at. Although editing wise, to be honest, I would probably go to black and white because I do think the red is distracting, and people, it's a cake smash, but people don't. I don't necessarily think they're gonna think it's blood, but they aren't gonna think, they don't see the context because the crop is so close. Or if in camera you had more to your crop, then you'd see the cake and it would make a lot more sense. So in this case, I would do a black and white. I would do a Pure Class, something super like bright, just like this. And I think it's a cool shot. Is it still a little bit messy? Yeah, but I think that edit works better than having all the red, since the red without the context can sort of look funny. Thank you for submitting, though. I hope that helps. Jessica here for our last submission, and this is a great image in camera. So you did an awesome job with your exposure, and sometimes it's fun just to see what the different looks we can get in one click in one of our presets. This is our Crisp and Clean collection, and I'm just literally looking here to see which ones catch my eye. This obviously, if you have your own specific style and your own look, then there's no point in doing this. But it's sort of fun for me to see how different presets look on different tones. And the Colcello one here, I think, is a great one. El Galante, a little bit. And the Summer, that's a nice warm one. Bright Eyes, if you want true tones, but just a little bit brighter. But let's go, and I think the black and whites looked amazing on this. All of them. Even that old timer, that little sepia, I think that's a really cool one. So let's go ahead and edit this one from scratch. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to definitely add some brightness, because then I'm also going to add, anytime you add contrast, you sort of want to add brightness too. That's just sort of a general rule of thumb, okay? Let's open up the shadows a bit. Let's add a little whites, and then we're going to drop the blacks. So instantly, we added more pop. Now let's go ahead and warm up the image. It's just a little bit on the cool side, skin tone wise for me. And then you can see, and we don't want to go to the green side. Usually when we add warmth, I like to add a little magenta too. Okay, clarity. I don't want to get too hardcore in the clarity because it'll start making her face look edgier. It's actually pretty good where it was, but I'm just going to drop it a hair. I usually don't touch vibrance and saturation, to be honest. But if you like color, then this is a good example of where we can add a little vibrance, just a little touch. Yeah, a little sharpening. Now, if we wanted to come to the light and airy presets, we can. I'm curious how this would look with a matte effect. Yeah, you could see this one. I mean, a lot of people, I think, they haven't experimented with mattes, and they should, because you can get some really cool. It just adds some character to it, in my opinion. So anyways, I think this photo looks great as is. I think you've done a great job. I mean, if you wanted to sort of try and draw a little more attention to her, we can sort of use our graduated filters to sort of, we have to be very careful doing this. This is sort of me experimenting, by the way. Let me ease this one off a little bit. You know, you could do something like this. This is sort of like almost a modified vignette. Let's just see how it looks. I think that if you're into vignettes, I think that's a good option right there. It just sort of helps draw the viewer right on in. But yeah, that looks great. So anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope this was helpful. I tried to do more and talk through things and not just do an edit and then be like, here it is. I also tried to show you in the beginning how I would import in. So if you're new to Lightroom, you got some help there. You saw a lot of our presets. If you're brand new to Cole's Classroom Pro, let me remind you that you actually can get any of these presets for free with your membership once every single month. So what happens is every single month you're a member, you earn a credit that you can then redeem for free products from Cole's Classroom, and all of our presets are in there. So when I show you these presets, it's not to say like you need the presets. In fact, you saw me edit them by hand, but the truth is the presets do help make your editing life easier and work a lot faster. So if you don't have the light and airy presets or the fall presets or the crisp and clean or any of them that you want, I would definitely make sure that you stick around inside the members area and then make sure to see when your next free credit is so you can go get those for free. On that note, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks a bunch. We'll talk soon.